guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sydney, and if you're new here, this is just a place where we talk about true crime, spooky stories, conspiracy theories, scams, whatever I got going on in this crazy brain, we're talking about it. If that sounds interesting to you, feel free to like and subscribe. I would very much appreciate it, but if not, that is okay too. If you're just here for the ride, we're happy to have you. So this is kind of like the second part in this little mini series that I'm doing about The Exorcist. Last week we talked about Ronald Doe and his exorcism case that inspired the book by William Peter Blatty. And today we're actually going to be talking about the 1973 film The Exorcist. Now this film was directed by William Friedkin, who you've probably heard of if you know anything about The Exorcist. We're going to be talking about the film, how it was made, some of the behind the scenes, but more specifically we're going to be talking about the Exorcist curse that is allegedly connected with this movie. So without any further ado, let's hop right into the story. I'm really excited for this one, and I hope that you guys are too. So the film The Exorcist surrounds a little girl named Regan and her mother. They live in this beautiful house, and at one point in the story, Regan finds a Ouija board. And after she finds the Ouija board, she starts experiencing some weird things, and they ultimately discover, after many medical tests, psychiatric tests, that she's actually possessed. The family gets help from a priest named Daniel Karras, and then Karras decides to enlist the help of another priest named Father Marin, and they complete the exorcism. So first and foremost, I really want to talk about the treatment of many of the actors on the set of The Exorcist. A lot of the bedroom scenes, where they're within Regan's bedroom where she is possessed, when you're watching the movie you can see the fog of their breath, and it looks very crisp and very clean. And the reason for this is that they actually filmed a lot of these scenes in sub-freezing temperatures, sometimes going as low as 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And when you think about it, this was very dangerous for a lot of the actors because obviously the crew could bundle up and be all warm and toasty. But for example, Linda Blair, who played Regan, was wearing a thin nightgown for most of the movie. So I'm sure that she suffered a lot of just like physical illnesses from that, because being in a sub-zero temperature for that long cannot be healthy for you. Additionally, director William Friedkin would sometimes shoot a gun before shooting a scene to get the actual illicit response from the actors of being frightened by a loud, scary noise. Additionally, even at some points, Friedkin would slap some of his actors to just get them like in the zone and to like make them have the reaction that he was looking for while he was shooting. And while many of these things don't really relate to what most people consider to be the Exorcist cursed, I still think it's very important to talk about this because the way that the actors were treated was not okay. The fact that they put like a young girl in these like sub-zero freezing temperatures, making her scared all the time in order to get the shots that they needed, well, it made an amazing, incredible film. It just makes me wonder about the well-being and the health of these actors. And I think it's important to just raise awareness about this because a lot of people, I feel like, don't know that about The Exorcist. Before the filming even started, one of the actors, whose name was Jason Miller, he played Daniel Karras, one of the main priests that performed the exorcism in the film. Jason Miller got approached by a real priest. This random priest off the street, said to him before filming The Exorcist that this film would reveal the devil for the trickster that he is. He will seek retribution against you, or he will even try to stop what you are trying to do to unmask him. So Jason Miller didn't really think too much of this interaction. It was just a priest, telling him that he didn't think shooting the movie was a good idea. But when you think about it in terms of what's to come, it's kind of eerie, to say the very least. So the first kind of cursed incident that happened on the set occurred one early morning before any of the cast or crew was on set. It was an older building, and they had a lot of different maintenance issues and things like that. But a pigeon actually flew into one of the circuit boxes, which lit the entire set on fire. The only thing that was left standing and was actually left untouched was Regan's room, where most of the exorcism and possession scenes took place. Not only did this fire set filming back an additional 6 weeks, but director Friedkin kind of took this as sort of a bad omen. He said he didn't really believe in any of the other Exorcist curse ideas, but he did say that this one made him think a little bit about like shouldn't you really be filming this movie? Whether or not Friedkin thought that this curse was real and true, a real priest came to the set to bless and give protection to the area to prevent any other bad things from happening while they were filming. So while I'm sure every single filming of every single movie has at least 1 or 2 deaths either surrounding the film or, unfortunately, at the filming, but there's quite a few deaths related to the exorcism film. Well, nobody, thank God, died on the actual set of the film. There were actually 9 deaths surrounding the filming, either post-production or after the movie came out. Jack McGrowan, and I'm so sorry, I know I'm saying that wrong. I cannot say many names, and I apologize. But Jack McGrowan is probably one of the most famous deaths surrounding the film. Jack actually played the filmmaker in the movie, which is kind of confusing, but he is a director of a movie inside of a movie, and he is actually thrown out of a window by the possessed Regan. In real life, Jack sadly passed away during the post-production of the film, and it was just due to complications due to influenza. He never got to see himself in The Exorcist, which is really sad, but this is probably the most famous and well-known death surrounding The Exorcist. Another name I cannot say, but I'm going to try my very hardest. An actor called Valisky Malarus. She also died during post-production. She played Daniel Karras' mother, and she was an older actor, but she unfortunately died of natural causes before the film came out. So she as well didn't get to see herself play Daniel Karras' mother on screen, which is very sad. These deaths are kind of spooky just because both of the characters that these 2 people played died within the film, and then, right after the film, they died in real life, which gives a lot of validity to the Exorcist curse for a lot of people. And again, this curse is kind of subjective, like most other things we talk about on this channel. I, for one, am kind of on the Exorcist curse, but for a lot of people, this is like solid evidence. So the other 7 deaths occurred to either the friends, family, or crew members of the film. And again, while none of these deaths occurred on set, it is just strange to think about how many people died surrounding this set, and of course it could just be coincidence, but I don't know, it is kind of spooky. So not only were there a lot of deaths surrounding this film, random fires starting, warnings to the actors to not do the film, but there were 2 really, really serious injuries on set, and we're going to be talking about each one individually. The first injury occurred to Linda Blair, who was playing Regan, the little possessed 12-year-old girl. Through many parts of the movie, she is on her bed and she starts like violently shaking. Either like the whole bed is moving or like she is physically like moving up and down. They achieved this special effect by rigging the bed so that Blair could be like tied to the bed without it really being seen. And then the bed would just like mechanically move. So there was not a lot of control over the situation. So at one point during the filming, Blair was violently thrown because some of her lacing and her rigging came loose. Some of the screams and some of the like painful sounds that you hear in the film are actually real screams of pain and fright as Linda Blair was getting thrown from her bed. So they actually used the real take of Regan being thrown from the bed because it looked so lifelike, and the screams of pain and terror were real because Linda Blair had been thrown and had fractured her lower spine. And nobody called a doctor, and they just kept right on filming, which is cruel and unusual. I really hope that wouldn't happen today, but I wouldn't be surprised. Linda Blair thinks that this actually contributed to her developed scoliosis later in life and affected a lot of her career as well. The other serious injury happened to Ellen Burstyn, who played Regan's mother in the film. They were filming a scene where Regan, who is possessed at the time, throws her mother across the room and then she like lands really hard on the floor. So to get this shot, the crew attached Ellen to sort of like a pulley system, and then one of the crew members would be pulling on this wire and then she would fall and be like pushed to the floor. They had shot the first couple of takes, but director William Friedkin was like, hey, like this doesn't look real enough. Can you pull harder? Like, can you make sure that you're pulling Ellen hard enough that it looks super real? Ellen tried to advocate for herself the best she could. She told Friedkin that that was hard enough. She didn't want to get hurt and that she just wanted to make sure that she and everybody else was being safe. But unfortunately, nobody seemed to really like care or honor her request to be a little bit more gentle, because the very next take, the crew member pulled away really hard and she fell really hard on her lower back. Again, if you watch the film, this scene is especially hard to watch for me personally because, again, much like that first shot with Reagan in the bed, they used Ellen's shot of where she was really injuring her lower back in the film. And so the scream that she has, it sounds really fucking painful, and it's probably because they used that shot in the film. It makes me mad that a lot of these injuries and a lot of these things really affected these women's career way down the line, and nobody seemed to care as long as they got a really good shot. And it makes for an amazing movie, don't get me wrong, but the fact that they had to unintentionally, I guess, injure people to do that, it just makes me annoyed. We should talk about the premiere and the viewing of The Exorcist by audiences. So this movie in 1973 was unlike any other movie to ever come out. This was scary as shit. And it still is. So like, I tried to put myself in that place. I'm 1973. I'm gonna go see a little film. I got my little snacky snacks. I got my movie. I got my popcorn. I'm ready to go. Like halfway into that movie, I would be surprised if I was throwing up the popcorn. Especially some of the more medical scenes are like really gruesome, and they're really hard to watch because there's like loud noises. You see a lot of the needles like going into people's skin. Listen, a little bit of personal information, but like I'm going to like school to draw people's blood, and that's going to be part of my job, so I have no problem with needles. But for some reason, the way that the sounds mixed with the weird lighting, mixed with the concept of the movie itself, is really freaky. So I can't imagine audiences in 1973 viewing this movie. I can understand a lot of the reactions that people had to this film. The faint of heart, they just walked right out of the screenings, which makes sense. They were just like, no, we're not doing this. We're getting out right now. We're tapping out. But a few movie theaters actually started to hand out barf bags at one point because so many people were having this visceral response and vomiting because of this movie because they thought it was so gross. One little fact that I thought was interesting is that on opening night in Rome, there was a movie theater that was situated right across from a church, and at one point during that night, lightning struck the church, which I guess is like a bad sign or something, but I just thought that was interesting. God was like, what are you doing? One woman in the UK was so distressed by the film that she actually passed out, fell, and broke her jaw. She did end up making bank though, because she ended up suing Warner Brothers for an undisclosed amount, and they settled out of court, so like, you get that bank, girl. And also in the UK, evidently there were certain paramedic teams that would just wait outside of screenings because they knew that they were going to have distressed people to take care of as they were coming out of the movie. I guess I didn't look at this, and maybe I should have, but I'm kind of interested to know how often this movie was banned for audiences. Did it not show as much because it was so gruesome? Was it only certain theaters that were showing it? I guess I'm kind of unclear about that, but it's just interesting. The very last thing I just want to touch on very briefly, because we're going to be talking about it extensively in next week's video. We're going to be talking about it a lot in next week's video, is probably the creepiest fact of all. At least it's the creepiest fact to me. In the hospital scenes during The Exorcist, there is a lot of technology being used, and there's a lot of extras being used to help power this technology. And one of these extras was a radiologist. Now, he was just an extra. We're going to be talking about how he got the role as an extra. But one of the technologists in the film was a man called Paul Bateson. And if Paul Bateson sounds familiar to you, it's probably because after the filming and shooting of this film, he was caught and convicted of killing up to 7 people. Next week, we are going to be talking about Paul Bateson, his early life, and what led him to do the things that he did. So if you are interested in learning about a murderer that was actually in The Exorcist, as an extra, but he was still in the movie. Feel free to tune in next week. So kind of bringing it back, closing it up here. A lot of these things to just be coincidence. I think that, well, it's really tragic, all the injuries, the disasters, the deaths surrounding this film. I don't think that it has anything to do with any sort of curse, but I think it's really interesting to talk about it and learn about it. And I hope that you guys thought it was interesting too. I'd really like to hear in the comments below, have you seen The Exorcist? If you have, what's your favorite scene? Who's your favorite character? I want to talk The Exorcist with y'all. Also, just so you guys know, if you are liking this content and you have a story that you guys want to hear about, you want me to cover, just let me know. I'm always really open to like learning about new things, and I hope that you guys are enjoying this little mini series as much as I am. I'm like geeking out. But that is all that I have for you guys today. I really hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the filming of The Exorcist. I hope that you guys have a beautiful, wonderful, amazing rest of your day, and that you keep being the bad bitches that you are. Bye guys, I'll see you next time.